my topic today is peace of mind. It's only one thought away. Uh, and I came up with that topic in thinking about this particular audience because um, from my teenage years through my kind of young adult and mid adult, I don't really feel like an adult. I'm 48, but really into my pushing 30, I found myself feeling very sort of out of sorts at times, sometimes for months or a year or two at a time. And it was very unnerving. And peace of mind was what I'd kind of been waiting for. I thought that would happen once I got out of my teen years, and it didn't. And it was it was unsettling. And I thought, is it always going to be like this? Like, is this what life is like? You're kind of a little kid and everything's easy. And then you get into the adult world and everything's hard. And you never know when it's going to stop. So I just, what I learned over the years, that's what it's brought me, is peace of mind. And it's one of the things that was very fleeting and unpredictable that would happen to me when my younger years. Peace of mind would just show up and then it would leave. And if I had some say over how often that happened, I would have done it. So that's what I wanted to talk about. So I've been working with teenagers and young adults now for 20 years. And I've, it's my favorite audience to work with. I specialize in them now because partly it's very loud to me when I hear other teenagers, young adults going through that experience that I went through. It's really loud, and my heart goes out to them more than older adults often. And so one of the things that I find about young adults and teenagers is that there's a few things that make it more unnerving. One is that you're in this phase of life where there's more questions than answers. And the questions are bigger questions, oftentimes, or they're the biggest ones that you've handled. And the answers feel like they really matter, and you don't get to know what they are. So should I go to college? Should I save the money and not go to college? Should I take the safe professional route, or should I follow my passion? Should I stay with this person? Should I leave? Why did I get broken up with? Is there something wrong with me? So a lot of questions, and there's fewer moments of clarity and answers than there are questions. And it feels like there's so much at stake with each unknown. It feels like if you don't figure this out, your life could go sideways and never recover. So it's very unnerving. And there's no one to ask. Your parents don't know what they're talking about, or they have their own problems. Your friends are in a similar situation. So you end up getting bombarded with things that are really matter to you, and you feel the pressure to fix, and you don't know what to do. And it's very common. And to me, that was the worst part of being a teenager and a young adult, is that. One of the things that makes it tough is that, but there's two things that make all the questions so unnerving. One is that you have this idea that how you're doing right now with these questions is sort of an indicator of how you're going to do in life. So if once people get the idea, well, I'm indecisive, my life's going to go by. It doesn't look like you're indecisive about this. It looks like, well, I'm an indecisive person, and that you can't do that in life. People have this idea that it's a really big deal how you're handling your life and each decision and each problem. So people feel like, a little bit under the microscope, or people are watching them. It just feels like a really big deal. It's not, but it feels like that. I can do a whole webinar on that. But that's one of the things, is the idea that you're under the gun to do it right. And the other part of it that makes decisions really hard, and that makes struggle really hard, is that you have these big emotional extremes happening while you're trying to navigate these issues. So more so, I think, as a young adult, a teenager, certainly, there's so much more laughter and joy, and there's so much you could cut you could cut it with a knife. The amount of emotion you feel, like when you're in love or when you're really into somebody or you're into your music. I was this way with music, my dog, my friends. I was like all in. I would take a bullet for any of those three things. They got me. I just felt like everything was fine and good in these moments. And you just have so much, you just get really into things. The joy is really thick and the love is really thick. And on the other side of things, the angst and the confusion and the overwhelm and the anxiety or the worry is also really thick. And in a way, it's a little bit, it's more extreme, it's louder, it levels out as you get older. But you're getting these amounts of emotions. They're amounts you've never handled before. And you just get hit with them. Sometimes it's fantastic, and sometimes it's just mayhem. And it can feel very, it just is very unsettling to have no idea when that's going to happen and when it's going to calm down, what kind of day it's going to be. And when you're having a hard time, how bad it can get. That surprised me. And I see that deer in the headlights look in a lot of my clients. Like, this is really, really bad. And I don't even, they can barely get the words out by the time they get to me. And so that, the feeling like there's a lot at stake, you have to handle it well, and having these emotions come and throw you around while you're trying to stabilize yourself, that makes it particularly difficult to find peace of mind, never mind peace of mind, just to find some relief and some sense of order. And that's the part that I want to talk about is something really interesting. There's a way in which we have something going for us that's just a standard issue that you get when you're born. Everybody gets handed one when they're born, that looks like it disappears, and it looks like we don't have one. And that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about. Is there's something that happens for us that we are provided clarity and answers and certainty about life. The peace of mind that we're looking for happens to us actually on a regular basis throughout our teen years and our young adult years. That I personally don't remember that. I remember the unnerving part and the angst and the chaos, but there's something that happens for us that provides us answers that we're connected to, that feeds us a steady diet of guidance and direction that we get from inside of us. And I'm going to talk about a few forms, what that takes, so that you can see what it looks like in your life, so you're not taking my word for it. Because it's something that will help you to know that it's there even when you can't see it or it looks like you didn't get one. Well, the more you're looking for it, the more faith you'll have in yourself. So one of the things that I saw this was actually in preparation for this talk. I had a client, I was thinking about this topic, and I had a client here, just graduating high school. She's 18, and her life, she was here for 4 days. I have a 4-day program. Her mom brought her up here for 4 days, and she had been suicidal. She'd been cutting. She was in a relationship that was borderline abusive. It wasn't quite there. It was getting there. And it was so interesting. And her mom was an alcoholic. And it was interesting because she comes and she's just a ball of anxiety and is kind of just terrified in our first morning of conversation. So I just said, well, just tell me, let's just talk. Tell me what's going on. And you can download everything if you want. And then I'll ask you questions, and then we'll kind of, we'll get some traction. So it was so interesting, as while she's talking, toward the end of the conversation, she starts talking about her friends. She's kind of the person, she's in a group of friends, and they're all sort of going through very similar things in different ways. One of her friends is trying to come out of the closet and can't do it. And her friends all have kind of a higher level problems the way that she does. And it's so interesting because they don't talk a lot about their problems. And yet they'll spend time for her. For example, her friends come to her and she's kind of their therapist. And it's really interesting because her take as she's talking about her friends, that's just what she's more interested in is her friends and talking about how amazing they are. And she has so much clarity and so much calm and so much peace of mind about their problems and has so much certainty in them, even though she doesn't necessarily have answers for them. And the fear is not there. She's not worried about them. And yet they're handling problems that have just blown up and they don't really know where they're going to land. She doesn't know if they're going to be okay by her standards, but she isn't worried about them. That was one of the questions I asked her is, what do you know? Do you worry about your friends? And she said, no, not really. And that's one of the things that was so striking to her is she didn't realize, and she was giving advice to one of her friends about relationships. And she said, you just have so many expectations about this relationship. It doesn't even it's not even really a relationship by high school standards. And she says, you have so much expectations. Why don't you just show up and see where it goes? Maybe you won't even like the person. And so she was walking back from our session afterwards. And she said, I could use some of that myself. And she was laughing when she came back in the afternoon and said, I realized that I have so much wisdom when it comes to my friends' problems and so little about mine. And that's one of the things that will happen for everybody listening here is that you'll find that there can be chaos on the outside, and yet you can be watching it, invested in how that person handles it, and yet be totally calm and have peace of mind about them, even though you don't have answers, even though there's a lot at stake, even though you're invested. And the fact that we have peace of mind that's right there and easy for us to reach is evidence of the fact that that's something we have. We carry that around with us. Now, one of the conversations that I had with her is she said, well, yeah, it's easy when it's somebody else's problem. I agree. I love hearing other people's problems. I love my job because everybody else's problems are much less intimidating to me. But the thing is if you look around your life, and if you look around when your friends come to you, there's something that happens inside you when your friends come to you. And that's what I want to point to. There's peace of mind shows up when we show up. When our friends come to us, it's really easy to drop everything and get really present and just get essentially into a state of peace of mind of kind of, I'm your rock and you can talk to me. And one of the things that happened for this particular client, this is the biggest part of my job, is to show people that feeling, we have something to do with when that feeling shows up. And one of the things that happens about our problems, and I'm guilty of the same thing, I was certainly guilty of it when I was a teenager and a young adult, is when we show up to our own problems, we might think about it initially as, okay, maybe I should break up with this person. What happens is we end up losing that feeling of calm that we had because we start getting into our heads and we get insecure and we essentially panic or we spiral down without realizing it in a way that we don't do with our friends. So I remember helping one of my friends with her boyfriend. Friend was dating this guy, Joe, and I really didn't like him. Sorry, Joe, I hope you're not listening, but he's a nice guy. I didn't like her with my friend. And I would get very judgy and start, telling her she should break up with him. And I remember one time she's like, this is my relationship. It's not your relationship. And I realized, I left my role as kind of being here just to being her rock. And I got kind of petty and judgy and righteous. And I realized, I don't do that with my friends. And that's, in a way, we show up to our friends in a way we don't show up to our own lives. We don't show up to our own problems. We get very, well, I'll talk about myself. I could get very sloppy about how I show up to my problems. So what happens is I'd start thinking about my relationship. I was dating somebody in high school that just seemed like was not a good person to be dating. But I thought, as soon as I had my clarity about it, I thought, well, he's not really good for me. And I've lost a lot of my friends. I could kind of see that it wasn't good for me. But what happens is I started thinking, well, what if I can't find anybody else? What if I regret breaking up with him? And I got insecure and I thought, I don't even really know where I fit into things. Like, that's kind of my identity. And I started questioning my friends, and I started questioning, like, I'm not even really that good at in school. And I went from like doing fine and thinking about things, big picture, to like kind of skidding out. And I just questioned everything. And I felt like I don't even really fit into this school, and I've never fit in. And my parents moved so much. Why did they move so much? And it's an interesting thing that happens to people. I'll go back to what I talked about, the emotions, is that your mind will go from 0 to 60 in any direction really fast, and it will take you with it. And one of the things that happens is people start thinking about, when we show up to just one problem, we do great. I had some very coherent thoughts about that relationship in that moment. I remember, because I broke up with him because of that moment. I thought, I'm getting isolated. But instead of having the clarity to do it then, it took me a few months. I started to get freaked out, and all of a sudden, all your problems come rushing in. And so instead of just showing up to one and having presence of mind with that one, which is the way our minds are designed to do things, kind of one moment at a time, you start importing all these other moments of, well, what about this problem? Let me think about my friends. Let me think about my academics. Now I then blame my parents. And you end up kind of trying to do all of your life at once and figure everything out at once. And that's what panic and insecurity looks like. That's what it feels like, is you have everything on your mind at once. And in a way, it's like you ever try to clean the house? You start with like one counter, and then you look over at another counter, and you start over there. And if you spent the hour in the kitchen counter, that one section, you get it done. But then there's those cleaning sessions where you get kind of ADD about the whole thing, and you're everywhere, and really your house looks the same after an hour. There's no section that's clean, and you're exhausted and bummed out. That's what happens with that's your emotions will hijack you if you let them. And there's a way in which your feeling on the way will tell you that your operating system is crashing. It's kind of, you show up present to a problem, whether it's yours or your friends, and you'll have very intelligent, lucid, calm process of thought that brings you all this wisdom where you can fix all of your friends' problems. As soon as you start to drop in your feeling, your mind will go with it. Your psychology will go with it. Your operating system will go with it. And it ends up, you know how when you watch like a video, like a YouTube video, there's other videos that get suggested to you, and there's kind of, I think they call it clickbait. You click on it and it's not really what you thought it was going to be. And your mind will do that with thoughts, that when one problem comes to mind, if your spirits start to drop, your mind will start to populate with all the other problems that you have. And that's the fork in the road that we take in relationship to our own problems that we don't take with our friends. And that ability to keep your mind calm, to respect calm more than you respect chasing your answers. That ability to do that, we navigate that really well when we understand that's what's required of us. And there's a way in which we fall asleep a little bit about how the feeling we come from about our own lives. And that's the only problem that I had as a teenager and a young adult. Not that I didn't have the answers or they didn't come soon enough, because you don't always get your answers. Sometimes you get your answers by making mistakes and realizing that a year or two later, this is not the right job for me, or this is not the right career track, this is not the right boyfriend. It's not having answers or having answers. It's your presence of how calm you are, or how lucid, how quiet, how much well-being you have inside of you while you're looking at that problem. That's a skill we're able to have. That's something that we're able to do, is on purpose keep our minds relatively clean and in service to just showing up in the moment and being there, kind of listening and paying attention. That when we do that for our own lives, we do great. When we do that for other people, we do great. One of the ways people see that, like this particular client, she said, it's funny, she has a volunteer job that she does once a week. She says, I show up at that job and my head is so clear. I love going there. I thought I would hate it. I was doing because I needed community service hours, but I found that it's a place for me to think. It's a place for me to really to not think. But what she meant was, I get answers every time I have a shift, and I go and I do my shift there a couple of times a month. I spend a few hours taking time off of my life, and that's where I get clarity. That's where I realize, so this person's not good for me that I'm with, or I just need to stop thinking about college so much and just focus on high school, because that's where I'm at right now, and just looking at the next step instead of the 10 steps after that. And now she came up here. I'm helping her get in that state. That's why I have a job, is because my job is to show people, but my job is to show her you have that in you, and you summon that state on purpose when your friends come to you and when you go to work. She just knows I can't go to work and think about my problems. It's not, even though I'm not getting paid, I'm here to help these people. She works at a food shelter. And so another place that shows up, at least for me, is in high school and college, I was a huge procrastinator. Well, when I had to write a paper and I had 4 hours to write it, I was amazing. I was clear. I came up with the best ideas because I wasn't trying to get out of it, because I knew I can't. So I just would write these amazing papers with these really good intros, or I'd come up with this ingenious way of tying it together that brought in my favorite TV show, or I'd just bring in something really creative that was fun for me and that the teachers liked. I knew, they're going to love this particular teacher. So you end up with this kind of creative genius that you're walking around with, sort of, is like double parked right outside. And as soon as we panic, our connection to that, we lose our connection to it. And the great thing is it comes back regularly. And that's my point, is that, first of all, that you can have chaos of a paper that's due and your whole semester grade, and maybe your ability to get into college rests on your being able to write that paper. There can be all of this at stake, and have some of a sense of chaos, and that the clock is literally ticking, and yet inside you can have calm. You can have calm and peace of mind inside you, even though your friend just came out to their family, and their family and all of their religious community and all of their friends just basically just shut them out. That you believe in them, and you know what, you have us, you'll build your own community. Just can feel so much confidence and zero fear, even though they have a lot at stake. And so the fact that we can feel calm inside, even though there's chaos and mayhem outside, in that moment, you can find calm. That's a power that we have. It exists whether you guys see it or not. It exists when I lose sight of it, because I do too, even though I do this for a living. Sometimes I just will freak out about, I have teenagers, and I'll get scared about one of them, or panic about one of them, or feel like I don't know how do I handle this? And I'll get scared, but there's a part of me that knows, okay, I'm just panicking. Sometimes it just blows off steam to panic and freak out. There's a part of me that knows I'm going to wake up tomorrow and things will look different. Maybe I'll see a first step. And that allows me, knowing that I'm in a passing storm and everything is going to look terrible until the storm. But once the storm's gone, things will look different. The landscape will look different. That brings me peace of mind, knowing that. And that's what I'm hoping that you guys get out of this, is being able to look and say, I am able to pull it together in these certain settings. You're doing whatever your favorite thing is that you do, your hobbies, music, your friends, that you can get away from your life. It's just as chaotic on a Wednesday as it was on a Tuesday, and yet feel like I'll figure that out. I'll handle that. You can feel your level of concern about it goes down. Or you can feel you can have clarity of thought come to you, even though you're at your volunteer job. You're not even trying to think about it. You get fed answers. You can do it on purpose when you go to work, when your friend comes to you, or you're writing a paper and it's a deadline. If you're one of those people that thinks well under deadlines, you can do it on purpose. And you can also see how answers come to you, even though you haven't thought your way there. So there's something working for you that I didn't learn about until I was older, and had I seen this sooner, I would have felt a lot less untethered, felt very untethered, like things could get so bad I'll never make it back. That's what your mind has. You've got all this power in the engine you're driving around in, and it may not feel like it, and it may not look like it, but I'm describing it because if you're like I was, and like my clients for the past 20 years, no matter what size problems you have, it looks like there's more problem than help. And I'm saying, well, actually, one of the things that comes with life experience is realizing things are not as bad as they seem. Things are going to be okay, even though I can't imagine how. I'm going to figure this out, even though I don't know what that looks like. There's a way of looking at your life exactly as it is and feeling peace of mind and calm, the way that you do with your friends. And that's something that happens as life goes on a little bit, as we learn about stuff like this. It's the only difference between adults and young adults and teenagers is not that they know what they're doing and so they make less mistakes or have less unknowns. There's just as many, but you stop being so freaked out by them because you feel like, well, I'll handle this unknown today, do what I can, and then the other ones I'll handle later. You just get better at navigating that the way that you naturally do with your friends. And that's the only difference. Most of the adults I have as my clients, they're changing careers and questioning what they should be doing with their lives and whether they should be with this person. Their questions are just as big as yours. And they're winging it just like you. They just panic less because they know this is not the time to think about this. It's sort of like trying to eat a sandwich in one bite. You can't just stuff the whole thing in there. You have to just take a bite at a time, like chew it, swallow it. And that's the way that moments are handed to us. Life just comes to us one at a time and a problem at a time. And if you just take the problem that's flaring up right now that needs some attention and you leave the other ones, the way that you do with your friends, the way that you handle your work, if you work, the way you handle your working life, if that's something you do more gracefully, as your mind operates great when it can show up present, just one thing at a time mentality. And the only problem we run into is that we shift out of that gear and we get into the panic of, I got to do everything at once. And that's a trick of the mind. That's what it feels like to get insecure. That's what panic feels like. And we would be able to call ourselves out on that if we did that with a friend of ours. We don't, for some reason, we just get used to it in our personal lives. And we don't realize that's the problem, is you're just in a state of panic. And as soon as you calm down a little bit, your mind will get more coherent and your problems will look more user-friendly to you, the way that your friends' problems look to them. So that's the idea that your mind, that there's calm is, and a feeling of certainty of, I don't know how, but I'll figure this out. That is possible at any moment. It just takes a second to remember that, to remember, I don't have any answers right now. I just have problems. I'm going to have to look at this tomorrow. I have to give this some space. That ability to find that thought, the way you do with your friends, is available to us all the time. And at some point in just about every problem we have, that occurs to us. It's just, I'm hoping this, as a result of this, it'll happen sooner than later. But everybody freaks out about something and overthinks it so much that at some point they're like, I have to stop thinking about this. Or you just simply, you have to get dressed, or you have to go to class, or you have to go to work. And then your mind sorts it out. It even does it while you're sleeping. The mind is this amazing machine that works great when your mind is calm and lucid and clear, and works really badly when your mood drops. And given that moods ebb and flow, your emotions, you get the full range of them. It's just a timing thing of the feeling you come from when you engage in, how am I going to handle this thing? If you're more interested in how you're doing inside, where you're coming from, the way that you are with your friends, and less interested in fixing that one thing and reorganizing or fixing the content of your life, you'll be in line with this system that wants you to work that way. And maybe this will help you move in that direction a little bit better. Is this making sense so far, Anne?
Yeah. So just in case anyone wants to ask questions, you can type questions into the chat box, or you can put your hand up and come on to ask questions if you want to. So, but in the meantime, yeah. So when you said you can do this on purpose, what did you mean by that exactly?
Yeah. What I mean by that is, in the same way that when your friends come to you, you kind of drop everything and just show up for them in the moment. It doesn't sound like you're doing much. It's because you're literally doing nothing. That's the whole idea. It's how your friends want you when they come to you. But what's really happening is you're kind of clearing the decks and getting your head in a state where you don't have anything on your mind. You're on purpose taking things off your mind, which sounds like a funny thing to do when you have a problem. But doctors in the operating room do that. That's the doctor you want operating on you. Like, I just had my appendix out last week. And the doctor came and introduced herself and said, all right, here's how it's going to go. I've got the little cap on and I'm on my little gown. And, you're kind of like, I hope this person knows what they're doing. Well, once they talk about what they're doing, you think, okay, I don't need to understand this. They've got this. You want somebody that's not talking to you about their breakup. It doesn't have their insecurities about, I hope I know how to do this. You want them to have nothing on their mind, because there's something we're hooked up to in life that you can just show up, and your mind there's this intelligence behind life. We call this mind in our circles. There's an intelligence, a universal intelligence we're connected to, that operates through us, that feeds us instructions. So I use this example at a conference. I gave a conference talk a few weeks ago, and where there's these Komodo dragons. I don't know if you've heard of those. They're really nasty looking, but what's interesting about them is they're kind of scary. They're essentially dinosaurs. I just find them fascinating. And these little Komodo dragons, when they're born, when you're little in the wild, everything's trying to eat you. Well, these particular critters, Komodo dragons, when they're born, their mom is trying to eat them. Yeah, the moms go after them as soon as they're born. I just could not, I had to pause the show and take that in, because I've never heard of that. I don't, maybe that happens often. I don't know. But I thought, now that right there, I was giving my conference talk. I was up in the middle of the night because I'm in England, and I'm watching that. I thought, that's going in my conference talk, because I was talking to parents of teenagers and young adults. Well, that shows you, if you can survive everything, including your mom's not even in your corner, and you literally just came out the egg, then it shows you what we have going for us as part of nature. So we're just as much a part of nature as Komodo dragons. And there's something surviving us. There's something making us survive, doing survival in us. We just are born, we just show up, and we have all these instincts, and we get all these instructions of when to hibernate, and when to swim upstream, and who to look out for. You're just born with that. And we're born with the ability to navigate whatever we have to navigate. We have instincts. We have the ability to learn from mistakes. We have the ability to watch from other people's mistakes and learn. We have common sense. So we're this powerhouse of adaptability. And it just so happens that the quieter your mind is, the calmer your mind is, the more clear that channel of instruction comes through. So if you spend time with animals generally, except one of my dogs, their minds are so quiet. They're so present. I have a dog that's particularly neurotic, but when he's not being neurotic, he's so present and calm, and just hanging with him, my head clears. That's our natural state. And that's state we fall into on a regular basis when we go to work, when we have a deadline with our friends. So that state is really just quieting our minds. We can do that anytime. And the reason that's helpful is because we're hooked into something that, if you're not paying attention, doesn't look like there's anything helping you until you stop and look and realize, okay, I've gotten through things so far, and I've had a lot of things thrown my way. And that's what you want to be looking for, is the fact that how you're able to survive the things you survived without any instruction, without having done it before, and not how messy it gets before you figure it out. The fact that you come out the other side is what you want to be more interested in. That's what makes adults more calm than young adults and kids, teenagers, is they see, I generally come through things. I'm sure I'll come through this. There's more of that. There's no more experience that helps you, because everything is new.
So you said about people wondering, well, what if I make a mistake? What if this doesn't go right? What about those worries about, well, what if I choose the wrong college to go to, or
Right, the wrong path. It's like a path and I got to make sure I find it, or right. That I could do a whole hour just on that. That's what pressure feels like. So in my house, we have natural gas. That's the kind of heat that we use, is natural gas. And every few months we get a postcard from the gas company with a scratch and sniff sticker. You scratch, and they want you to scratch it and smell. You guys know scratch and sniff stickers? Those were so big when I was a kid. It's basically, you can smell what something smells like by scratching it. So you smell it, the reason that they want you to know what that smells like is because gas doesn't have a smell. So if you have a gas leak and you just walk around your house, at some point your whole house is going to explode. And so they add a smell to it so that when there's a gas leak, you notice it and you can get out of the house and call the gas company. So, well, panic and fear and insecurity and anxiety of, I'm going to pick the wrong path. That's what it feels like when your emotions drop. And when you get lost, you'll know the feeling inside of you feels terrible. And because your mind ebbs and flows, and sometimes it's lucid and calm, and sometimes you're in a great mood, sometimes you're in a terrible mood. Your emotional state ebbs and flows with the rest of nature, and insecurity and panic and doubt about your life is kind of the smell of when your mind is turned upside down, when your mind is in a compromised state, when it's impaired. And we know that when we're talking to a friend of ours, when we get judgy or we start telling them what to do, or we get annoyed that they keep having problems, that's us not being in a great state ourselves. As soon as we come out of that and we get our clarity back, we have an open channel to our intelligence, to our common sense, our ability to see answers and clarity. And when we get more insecure, we lose that. And in a way, your feelings will tell you. The more negative, the worse you feel, the more complicated your life will look. And the same life will look like you'll see answers and will look like it's just as messy as everybody else's when your clarity goes back up and your mood goes back up. So in a way, your emotions are there to help you know whether it's a good time for you to be thinking about your life or not. And that's one of the things that happens is when you're doing badly, instead of looking at when I got out of high school, when I got out of college, actually high school too, I didn't know what I wanted to do next. I had no idea. But it was very unnerving to me when I started thinking, well, other people are doing things, and am I doing something as good as what they're doing? And are they going to be on a better path in 4 years than me if I do this path? Rather than just looking at, I get out from under that periodically and I think, well, maybe I'll do this. Well, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll go work. I remember thinking, maybe I'll go work on a cruise ship. Somebody talked about working on a cruise ship and it's really fun. You make a lot of money because you're not spending it. You're not paying rent. But that sounds fun. And then I had the thought, well, maybe I'll go to graduate school. I just had kind of passing ideas. And then of those things that were floating around, I had a friend of mine that could have gotten me a job where she was working. And I just leaned towards one. One of them just sounded like, well, I think I'll do that. And I put a little more thought into looking into it, but it didn't feel like a big deal, like I'm choosing my path. It felt like, well, I'll just do this. And if I don't like it, then I'll change paths. It just felt very simple to me. And so I've changed paths a lot because I thought, well, that looked great and it was terrible. But you take something from it, so it makes like that's what ends up being your life. But you know that, you have that kind of confidence that you're figuring it out and that's okay. Picking a path that you end up not liking is just as helpful. Ends up getting you where ends up getting you to the same place regardless. That you lose sight of that, and that's what insecurity looks like. So the idea that there's a right path and a wrong path is we kind of make that up based on our ideas of what, or our parents' ideas or our culture's ideas of what right and wrong looks like. And if you, the moments where you strip that away, you end up just leaning in directions based on what's in front of you and where your interest lies. The same way you pick your friends. Pick your friends like, oh, this person's funny and quirky and not somebody I would normally talk to. I'm going to like sit next to them. They end up being a friend of yours. Well, you didn't plan. That was not your path. Some people feel like that's their fate. If that ends up being your friend, that's your fate. Instead of sitting next to this person over here, you sat next to this person and that person ends up being your best friend. That's your fate. So it's, I mean, everybody has to sort that out for themselves. For me, I only start thinking about right and wrong when I get insecure. And that's one of the something I feel more and more certain about as I get older. I still get tempted into thinking that, and it always looks, to me, my thinking when I do that looks stupid to me the next day or the next week, or even, sometimes it's a year later.
I like that I hadn't thought about that before, how it's automatic, how when we choose friends, we don't sit there and logically think, should I choose this
Do
friend?
I want this person in my life?
You don't do that, do you?
Right.
And if you use the same as like little children, they don't stop and think, well, will I play this game today, or will I do that? That they just do whatever comes to their mind at the moment.
Exactly.
And if we just do the same thing for careers, but I know that, I guess it was the same for me when I was at school. Is like, you have this idea that this is, like you said, that this is going to be your life and you have to decide it now. But you don't.
Absolutely. Right. And your life ends up forming a path based on what you're interested in and not interested in, good at, not good at. It just ends up happening. So and if you look at people that I listened to a band, the Dave Matthews Band. Well, they started out, as jazz, jazz was their influence. Well, you could hear that in their music, but they ended up creating something, and every artist is like that. But you'd never think that would end up in the mainstream the way it has here in the States. But they brought something different to it. And so you will bring something different. Your interests will all come together and form something that nobody else has formed before. And that's it ends up happening that way. It's just people have the idea that you have to have the clarity first, in the same way that people feel like, well, to fix a problem, you have to have the answer before you can have peace of mind. Well, actually, no. You can have peace of mind and calm of, I'll figure this out. I don't know how yet. And that's how we tend to get to our answers. And in a way, following interest, people can get a sense of, form a path through their interests and their passion, and just whatever opportunities are in front of them. They grab one of those, that puts you on a path. You don't have to know what the path's going to look like. It ends up creating one. So it's a different way of looking at things. In a way, it's kind of coming at it from the very opposite direction. We have that going for us, and that's what will get you through life, whether you know it or not, whether any of what I'm saying makes sense to you or not. There's something working for you that's gotten you here so far, and it's gotten you, and you've followed your interests around friends, music, hobbies, what you like to do in your free time. You're just, in a way, you've been forming your resume your whole life. You'll just continue to do that.
Yeah. One of the things that comes to my mind about that is, like, when you lose something, like you lose your keys or you forget someone's name. you forget someone's name, and you know that person's name,
Right.
and you cannot remember what it is. And the more you try, and the more you logically try and work out, well,
Right.
what is it, and think
Right.
about it, the more you're
Yeah, it slinks away from you. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
And then you stop and you do something else completely. Like you said, you don't keep focusing on it. You just give up and go and do something else.
Right.
And then suddenly there it is.
Well, and
Close to
that's
you.
the thing. I think that's the thing that for me was one of the biggest things that I've learned in my life. And I had to relearn it when I had kids, is especially when, you know, they're teenagers now, is it's I didn't realize that you could not know things. And that was like not only was that like an okay, that it was okay to do and acceptable, it didn't make you like, it didn't make you look bad, but it's a necessary, it's totally appropriate and inevitable. And it is so necessary that I spend more time not knowing than knowing. And it's made me more bold in my career. That doesn't freak me out. It used to really freak me out. I mean, there's things that still freak me out. I didn't know how much getting my appendix taken out was going to cost. Well, there's a huge implication to that. But I knew, well, when I get there, I'll figure it out. And if I get there before I've had a chance to figure it out, then I'll sit down and I'll just clear the decks and figure, you figure, well, I may have to come up with a whole creative solution to that, because I can't imagine what that'll look like. If it's if it doesn't fit my current model of, if it doesn't fit into my life, you find a way to accommodate it. And you end up getting creative and being willing to not know things. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my career, but what makes sense as a next step. It's not that you can't consider, well, what career path would this put me on if I did this versus that? It's not that you can't consider that, but you want to be able to feel like it's okay to not really know what the answer is, in order to kind of let your creative process kick the ideas around. In the same way that I might not know where my keys are, and in the meantime, I'm going to go shut the lights and get my stuff ready to go, and kind of you have it in the back of your mind. And to be able to have something that's a really big deal go well, to not know the answer to something and be able to be calm anyway, and have that on the back burner, we can do that. You don't have to just obsess and fixate and freak out until you have your answers. And that's something that once you're off the hook, once you can not know and have that be okay, a legitimate way of being in life, like, I don't know if I should be with this person or not. The woman I talked to this morning is like, well, I'm wasting my time with this person, and I want to know if I should stay with him or not. I said, well, it doesn't work that way. You're either going to wake up one day and say, I'm not being with him anymore, or you can just cut and run now. It's whether you do that or not. That's one of the things she saw this morning, is she realized, just there's something keeping me in it. And I don't know if it's my insecurity or if it's my wisdom saying, you're just picking this person apart, settle down already with them. She couldn't tell. She said, well, we don't always get clarity when we want it. She said, I know at some point I'll wake up and it'll be clear. And I just have to stop. She's trying to think her way to that decision. And there's some of the things in front of us. All right, you have to decide. You got to pick a college. You got to pick if you're going to college. So there are times where you have to I don't know about you, but there's a lot of things you're like, well, I don't know. This looks like, all things considered, this looks like the right thing. You just got to take whatever set of information, however incomplete it is, and make the call. So you look into, well, how much does this cost, and what would this do for me? And then you just make the call. They're always not quite formed enough And yet you just pick one. And you can live a whole life of those. That's my life. That's probably your life. And the more peace of mind you can have about that model, and the fact that we do remember the person's name, where their keys come from, maybe it's a little late, but whatever, your life will stretch to accommodate. If you're okay with that model, a lot of the unknowns, you'll feel the permission to just say, I'm not going to know that yet. I don't know if law school is the right choice, but right now it looks like the right one. And maybe in a year I'll have paid a bunch of money and decided it wasn't, and whatever. I don't have the clarity yet. If you're comfortable having a certain number of unknowns be just things you just can't find your way to those, your life will be a lot easier.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
you want to be able to be faced with the messiness of life and be as calm as you can, and have at least, I don't know, a sense of humor. That's what it looks like to me, of like, this is either going to be like a giant mistake that I tell a story about, or it's going to be a tragedy. And, but whatever, it's just, this is going to turn out somehow, hopefully good. But you want to be able to feel like that's, the messiness is just a part of life, the same way you feel that with your friends when they come to you. Even though you're faced with all these unknowns and they all seem like a big deal, there's a way to relate to unknowns. There's a way to relate to life where you're like, I don't know, I will definitely come out the other side. I don't know what that's going to look like. There's something in people feeling the confidence that that's happening. That's going to be the story, whether you realize it or not. It's always been a story. It's going to be this. You're going to come out the other side, whatever it is. There's something reassuring or something comforting about that. That if you had to have the mess with the comfort and reassurance, it's not so bad. At least that's how I felt, and that's how I feel now as a parent.
Yeah, I think that's really important to know, that you don't have to know. You don't have to know the answers. I think that's, yeah. Yeah, because I always felt that I had to know everything, had to know the decisions and make it. And now I'm just like, I haven't got a clue what's going to happen tomorrow. No.
Right. Well, it's so interesting because we have so much wisdom, when we look at our friends' problems, and, when there's a crisis and we keep it together and other people don't, we have so much composure that we bring just by showing up. What your insecurity doesn't tell you is that wisdom is going to show up to that moment when it's time to handle that. We lose sight of that, and so we don't get the benefit of knowing we're taking that with us everywhere we go. So you can't really mess up too bad, because you'll be there to clean it up. In the same way that there's no problem your friend can bring you that you don't feel like, I will figure this out. Let's just look at what to do today. So that person is on staff 24/7 for your life. It's just, you might not be listening to that person. You might just be panicking and not really looking for answers because you're just freaking out. But you have that person is like walking around with you your whole life. And that's the part of it that lets me not know what I'm doing about something that's a really big deal. And I'm okay with that. And the more okay with that, the sooner I tend to get my clarity. It might not happen till like Sunday morning. Sometimes I have to look at some of my parenting dilemmas and say, yeah, that's going to be a 3-day answer. Like I need 3 days. I don't see myself handling. I don't know how I'm going to respond. And I'm not going to know tomorrow either. There's some things you're watching it blow up and you're like, oh, okay. So that's something. You're at work. So you got to be at work. But that's going to be part of my future these next few weeks. That's you get kind of really what it is you just get patience and a little bit more, okay, we're going to just roll with the punches here. you just try to get through the moment. And so you just get a little bit more graceful and a little bit more patience, really the only difference between adults and young adults.
Brilliant. That's really good. So we haven't got any questions. Nobody's asked any questions. So, but if anyone wants to ask questions, they can do so underneath the video. This is going to be live on YouTube. It's going to be on YouTube straight away anyway. So anybody can ask questions underneath the video, and I will pass those on to Erika. And otherwise, there is a page about Erika on our website at thesecretofeverything.com, and there will be a link to that underneath here too, so you can find out where Erika is and get in touch with her and ask her questions there and see what else she does and how she works with people. So thanks very much, Erika. That's been really good. Thank you very much. It's been lovely having you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I hope this is helpful to your audience. And this is my most favorite audience. So I was so excited to be able to do this, even though my appendicitis came along. The fact that we got to make this happen made me very happy. So I appreciate you having me and rescheduling, and it's been really fun doing it.
Yeah, it was obviously meant to be. So thanks very much for being here.
Yeah. Good luck with the rest of the series.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye. See you again.
All right.